Hello. How are you? Are you sick of me yet? I'm not sick of you. These are fun. And today's, I think, will actually be short, like they're supposed to be, even though part of me inside is like, oh, but it's not enough. But it is. It is. I know you have plenty of other things to watch and do. So, hi, Terry. Hi, Hannah. Hi, Tanya. You can't get enough. I doubt that. So yesterday was pretty chunky, I think, because mobility and tightness it's most of the sleeve issues. Hey Chippy, how's it going? Good morning. But, you know, obviously the position of the sleeve on the body is also really important. And just like pants, how you can kind of, you know, pull them up more in front or pull them up more in back or kind of adjust them. You can do the same thing with your sleeve, you know, thinking of it like something you can rotate in the socket, right? Hey Christina, how's it going? So I have basically two things for you today. One is the cap height and one is the position of the ball of your shoulder. So we can get right into it so I can keep you guys a shorter amount of time today. All right, so for a short cap, I didn't think my sample illustrated this well enough since the arm on the muslin isn't a real arm, but I saw this on my Donny when I fit it with you guys last week. So you can see how there's those drag lines from under the arm pointing up to the cap. And you can also see how the hem of the sleeve is winging out a little. I always call it the whoop-de-doo, you know, a little whoop-de-doo there. It's not that bad here. Like you might even be able to ignore this depending on how, like if you moved it around on your body, maybe it's okay, right? It could be that the armhole was too high. I don't think so here because the wrinkles would look a little different on the arm. So, hi Amy. So yeah, so my urge when I see these is to take out the stitches right here at the cap. So if you're wondering if you have this issue, take out the stitches of the cap. Like go from like mid-arm to mid-arm, front to back. Just unpick the stitches and then let the sleeve relax and fall down. And then that little space that you're missing there is what you need to add to the cap. Hi, Justine. But you need to also make sure that you like where your armhole is. Now, all these adjustments I'm telling you about yesterday and today assume you have the armhole in the place that you want. You can't just fix some fitting issues without making sure your bodices fit well as well, right? So for cap issues here, let me get my pieces here. My front, my back, or my sleeve, my front, and my back. Okay. Let's get confined space here. I have a little more space than I think. Here we go. All right, so if this was a short cap, you know, it would be, we'll pretend like this wasn't short. I didn't artificially shorten this one just so it looked visually shorter. But, you know, the other thing is that what if this armhole line was too far onto your body? Like it came way close to, like up onto your shoulders. That can pull the sleeve up too, because you know when you think about it like this, right? If here you are wearing your sleeve, right? If this shoulder line is too far in, it's going to hike up your sleeve, right? Because it's going up and over the upper part of your arm. It's not just going like this, right? It's going whoop, like this, and this will pitch the angle of the hem up. Right? And then that's why I say, oh, unpick these stitches and let it fall down and relax a little bit. It's not going to look level with the paper. And it doesn't have to be perfectly level. A perfectly level sleeve will probably be kind of uncomfortable unless you have, it's really full or there's gathers in it. Maybe you have the lift because, you know, you aren't shaped like this. You know what I mean? Like your arm isn't onto your body like this. So you can get it pretty good and pretty level. You just don't want this really severe like angle right here, right? So it's pretty easy to do. I love it when this is the issue and I can tell someone, okay, your armhole looks okay. All we need to do is raise up your cap, and you can do this a couple of ways. The way I usually do this, I'm gonna cut this larger piece of paper here, is I am very literal. So a lot of times, this is another one of the reasons why I realize I don't do a lot of the fitting adjustments the same, is that most of my patterns for years and years and years were on manila, like a cardstock. So I didn't have soft paper like this. And so what I would do would be, oh, I'm gonna raise my cap up. I would draw my line here, right? I would do this on a one whole piece of paper probably. I would line up my grain line on there. I would trace off my cap, right? And then I would just trace off my sleeve again, right? And then I have my little cap there, and then I would blend it in. Very, very, very literal. I would use the existing cap. So another way you can do this is how I would do the quick and dirty way if I wasn't like working for somebody. I would just raise it and blend it in, right? And make sure that I'm keeping the same length. Now, the home sewing world is a little bit more consistent with keeping the seam line exact, which is great. That's what you want, right? And what they'll do is they just cut the top of the cap off, like right about here. You want to be up here in this cap area right here, you know, like kind of like you know, the top of your gush, right? Right there. And you can cut it across. And then you can tape it back on there. Oops, that's removable tape. I just switched my tape dispensers out and I gotta fix them. So we'll put this one here first. And let's say we want to raise it a 1/2 inch, which would be quite a bit, but kind of what I usually see. Then I will transfer my grain line like this. See, this already looks a lot more like easy to keep it on track and more accurate, right? And so then I'm gonna lay this on here, lining up my grain line again. And now I can blend this in pretty easily. This cap looks really narrow, and it's because it was a correct cap already. So then we blend this in like this. Don't think that you're adding to the width when you blend in. You're not. Remember, like it seems kind of confusing. Does it change the ease in the cap? Yeah, it can change the ease in the cap. So usually, hi Elizabeth, hi Ann. Usually when you're doing this, it's often corresponding with moving the armhole up, like 50% of the time. And this, if you don't want to add in this extra ease, then you can overlap down the center a little bit, which I'll show you in just a second. Hi Aisha, how's it going? So when you're blending in lines, so you see how this line, this outer black line of this cut off cap piece here, it looks like it's, you know, sticking out right here, right? But we know that that line right there matched up to this point right here, right? So intellectually, you have to reassure yourself, intellectually, you know, I'm not actually adding to the width here when I blend, or I'm not trimming off the width, depending on what you're doing, right? So when I blended here, you know, if I use maybe the red marker will be more obvious. It's a little less accurate though, right? So it looks like I'm trimming off this little bit here, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to lose any width. You're not losing width because remember, it matches right here. We're just blending in the line, that's all, right? So now if this adds, so this would add a 1/2 inch of ease because we kept the change. I don't really like pushing too hard on my blade when I'm aiming at myself. Let me tape that back down. So because we kept this change right up here at the top and we raised it straight up, we almost have a perfect linear measurement right here, right? So if we were to draw in this seam allowance here, it's a little longer, right? Because this would be a linear amount, 1/4 inch, which would be a 1/2 inch in like 100% size form, right? But along here, it's more than 1/4 of an inch. So you're gonna get a little more than what you're adding in ease here. And if you don't want that, you can slice your sleeve like right here and get rid of some of it and just overlap it. Because think about it this way, this right here, this change, that was adding length, right? Now we're taking away some of that ease and just measure on the seam line there. So I'm just gonna pivot it out a little bit and measure on your seam line. Always measure on your seam line. Always measure on your seam line. We are fixing a short cap because it's short. I kind of dove right into it today because I've been doing these super long videos, and I thought I'm going to give you guys a little break from me and do a really quick one. So, how's it going, Karen? So here we go. We'll pivot this out a little bit, right? And what I'm looking at is the seam line here. And this one, you know, obviously we need to blend this in a little bit. And here in this case, you got to remember, I'm raising the cap on a sleeve that didn't need it, so that's why it's looking really narrow. We can go like this and blend it in there. So now we've raised the cap, and that added about a 1/2 inch of ease because here and here, and now we're just removing that ease. I would try and keep the ease in there if you think like, I think I could ease a little more in my sleeve if you're not at that full max, you know, 1.5 inch difference in your ease, then I would leave it in there if you can, you know. So that would be my suggestion. So just for those of you who came late, I'll show you the little video I have, or it's not a video, this is a photograph. My sample, I didn't want to create a whole sample for this. I have one, and it didn't really translate well on the dress form. Like, you couldn't tell because that arm is a fake arm on there, and my muslin wasn't enough for me to wear. It's like a little like cropped thing. So, but you see these strain lines coming from the underarm pointing up at the cap there. And you see this little whoop-de-doo here at the outer hem, how it's angled up, right? And that, for me, when I see this, and I see this, I never look at people's butts for fitting jeans in public. I just don't. Like, if I look at anything, it's sleeves. This makes me want to walk up to someone with my seam ripper and rip it out from like, oh, you can't see my mouse, but rip it out from like mid armhole to mid armhole, front to back. And you just rip out your sleeve and then let the sleeve fall down, and you can see how much you're missing up there. It's a very simple fix to detect, to know for sure that's what's happening and what you need to do. It's one of the easiest ones. The only wild card here is if you don't have your armhole in the proper place and you do this erroneously. So say your armhole, you know, it was like really far in here, right? Like here, right? Well, and your sleeve is doing that little, you know, whoop-de-doo thing. Well, if you move the armhole out, you can leave the sleeve alone and it will be fine. You should test it because the length here will have changed. It will have shortened a little bit on the armhole. But once you pull this out to the outer edge of your shoulder, the sleeve is going to fall and rest in a more proper position without that, you know, whoop-de-doo. Now you're going to see this little angle in sleeves like camp shirts on men. So don't go around to all of the people you know with camp shirts on and be like, look at your sleeve. It's really doing a whoop-de-doo thing there. Those are dropped shoulders, and they tend to do that. So when you think about how most companies fit a sleeve, they're fitting it to be the most comfortable with the arm in a 45-degree angle. They don't fit it for people flagging down airplanes at the airport, right? That's only me that likes to do that. With my lift, I really like to gesture wildly, you know? So just because you see, you know, this little whoop-de-doo like that, it doesn't mean that it's weird, you know? Even if it would be nice if your sleeve could fit more like this, right? But you'll see a lot of camp shirts. I know my eraser's here. You know, they have a lower armhole, they have a lower shoulder, right? They're coming out more like this. The armhole is shallower, right? They have this sleeve and it does this. Well, I never said I'm very good at drawing, right? It's a very socially acceptable sleeve, right? Did it change the bicep line? No, I mean, the bicep line is right down here. So theoretically, if this was hiked up onto the shoulder, the bicep line wasn't sitting in the right place. So once we lengthen the cap and we pull it back down, it will be in the better place on you, right? And then you'll get the max amount of girth there for the bicep line. You guys have any other questions? Why does my work surface look so messy? I'm so messy. It's funny, I really am kind of like, kind of messy, but not quite messy. All right, so, do you guys have, hi Tina, I don't know if I said hi to you. Do you guys have any other questions about a short cap? This could be the opposite too, right? You could have too tall of a cap. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that, but usually when you see something that's too tall of a cap, it's going to be sitting up, like the cap is going to be kind of excess fabric there, and it sort of just sits above. It's too long, right? Hi Julie, how's it going? So you can just trim off that cap. And in that case, what's really nice about that is that you truly know it's excess because it's sitting above your armhole. It's not doing anything, right? It's just kind of sitting there looking like a little wing or something, you know, and it's just sitting above. And maybe there's too much ease in your sleeve, right? Maybe you need to take down some of the ease, like you've just got too much here. Sometimes the cap will be too narrow and it's kind of squeezing and pushing up onto the arm, right? So, yeah, arm's eye. I like the way you spelled it. When you do the 1/2 inch on the cap, what happens to the arm's eye? Nothing happens to the arm's eye because I didn't change it. But that's why I stress that your armhole should be in the right place to decide if you need to raise the cap on the sleeve. Because if the armhole isn't in the right place, don't change your sleeve. You need to get your armhole correct first. Always with sleeve changes, don't do both at the same time. Get your armhole correct, then work on your sleeve. If you do a narrow shoulder adjustment, should you lengthen the cap? I wouldn't to begin with. So what Jan is asking is, so say we have someone and their shoulders need to come in a little bit on the garment, right? We need to do a narrower shoulder adjustment. So with the sleeve, it was here, right? And now it's going to get pulled up to here. So usually what I do is I raise the cap on the sleeve if the sleeve looked okay. If you're like, the sleeve looked okay, but it was too baggy and it's hanging off my shoulders. And so the sleeve, if it's fitting in that position, that is 100% possible that the sleeve will fit you perfectly even though the shoulder line's in the wrong place. So what I think of it as is a movable line, right? This shoulder seam can go here, 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 you know, here, right? It's just a seam. It's just a complicated seam because it's going around the arm, right? So When your sleeve is already fitting really well and you're bringing in the shoulder, you're going to have to add to the cap. Otherwise, what's going to do is it's going to pull your sleeve up, and then you're going to get a whoop-de-doo, right? So yeah. Where did you find that shorter grid ruler? This one right here. I'm really addicted to these kinds of rulers. Like, well, this one right here, I used the 2" by 18", but I'm going to tell you, this one I sliced in half. You can see it's broken here at the end. Because it is easier to use under my machine right here, I just took an old rotary blade and scored it and then snapped it. But I usually use the 2" by 18", and then this is the 1" by 6". I think it's linked in my tools on my website. And I use it because it's really nice on camera. Oh, I just love these little things. I have like 6 of them. They're everywhere. I don't know if there's a centimeter version of these. This is definitely imperial. There's no centimeters or millimeters on here to be found. All right. Did that make sense, Jan? Hi, Jules. So it just depends. Wherever your armhole line is in relation to your sleeve, if you can't just pull up the armhole line and not expect to affect the sleeve. So if the sleeve was kind of drooping down and kind of sagging on your arm because of this narrow shoulder adjustment you needed, you can remove this amount here, right? Remove this amount, and maybe this sleeve will be in the proper place on you. And one way you could kind of check, Jan, is, you know, if you pinch up equally, or not equally, if you pinch up only on the bodice, like you could even remove the seam along the cap right here, right? And then pull it up to where you're proposing to put your shoulder line and look at the sleeve. So always test it. Sleeves are worth it, you know. Did all that make sense? Would you like a like I can bring the dress form over and kind of fiddle with it if you want. I don't have a miniature arm for my little dress form. I only have the big one over there. Tomorrow's gonna be fun because we're gonna be on Jelly Bean, which is my quarter pant form. If you can wrap your head around that. All right, so let's talk about the ball of your shoulder. We're just gonna toss that. We might be able to use these pieces here. I had one person ask me to do the demo with a 2-piece sleeve, but I wasn't quite sure if I was understanding what they were talking about, since this shouldn't really affect a 2-piece sleeve. So, but we'll see. I'm gonna do both. All right, so I have a little video for you. Wait, why is that? Oh, there we go. That was weird. It was still showing it was hidden. All right, so can you see all that excess fabric along my back armhole there? And this isn't a very severe version of this, because often when I have this on me, you can see the ball of my shoulder right here, right? And you will see these little strain lines pointing directly at it. It's kind of comical. It's so obvious. And they're like little whiskers right there. But all that bagginess at the back, it's like, why the sleeve looks so good? Why doesn't it fit? And it's basically because you want to rotate the sleeve in the armhole. Okay, that's so weird. There's some lag in my thing there. Okay, so yeah, so let me get my little sketch out here. So let's look at this from the side view, right? So okay, so this is the front and this is the back, right? And so right now, what we're seeing in that video is that the sleeve is like this. The fullest part of the cap is back here on the body, right? So what we want is we want to take this and go like this. We just want to move the axis like this so that it's more in line with the ball of my shoulder, because mine is right here. So we need this right here, this whole area here that we've spent so much time fitting for the gush of our upper arm. We need that centered over the ball where the ball is on me. So, well, what are you saying yes please to, Anne? Did I ask something and you're saying yes to? All right. So, this is kind of a fun change. I think that people see this in instructions and go, ooh, that looks super dicey, but it's super fun. I really like it. So if you ever get to see my sloper and my sleeve, it looks like a carnival ride, right? You were going to show it on the dress form. Oh, show it on the dress form. Oh, okay. Oh, what was I going to show? Sorry. I try to talk slow and wait to hear you guys, but sometimes, you know, you just never know. So this is the short cap, but it just isn't really translating well. You can, you know, like there's no arm in there to really show. That's why I have it inside out, because I was like, oh, maybe I could play around with this. But, you know, when I'm playing around with this, we'll take out this seam here and we can kind of play with it. I don't know why I made the thread match. That's not very kind when I'm... It's kind of nice to see the seams sometimes, and the seams, the things. Oh, perfect. There you go. The other little ruler I really like is this one here. The good thing and the bad thing about it are those dots. The dots make sure that it won't slide, but my red ruler, I need it to slide. This is great on fabric. This one I got from Waywack probably. It's by Creative Grids. Whereas the other one is by Westcott. The red ones are by Westcott. I ordered those ones with a bunch of other things, and I was most excited of everything in my order for those silly little rulers. And I could not find them anywhere in the box. I looked under the flaps, you know, they're really tiny and slicker than snot, and I bought like 3 of them. So I thought, well, they're together, they're like in a little bag or something. And I asked my daughter, because she needed boxes, and she had moved like an hour and a half away, and I said, hey, is there any rulers in those boxes? Like, look thoroughly, they're tiny. And she said, yeah, we lifted up the flaps, we looked under the tape, looked everywhere, couldn't find them. And then, so I reached out to the company. I was like, I'm really sorry, but I cannot find these anywhere. Are you sure they got sent? And they were like, no problem, we'll just send them again. And I was like, well, wait, you don't have to do that. You know, like, I'll buy them. Maybe I lost them when I got here. And then they sent them, and then my daughter found them. So now I have tons of them. It was really nice of them. Okay, I'm almost done. Okay. So I'm going to do this. We can do this right side, but I just wasn't sure if I should take the arm off. So we'll take the arm off. Maybe I should have left the arm on. I don't know. Okay. So when I'm looking at, you know, how this sleeve, I can't really see the center backs. Hopefully I get this fairly on there. So you see how, like, taking out that seam, I can let this fall and sort of see, and you know, if someone was wearing this would be far better. I wouldn't do this on my dress form without an arm in it. I would do it on myself. And I would kind of see what am I missing up there, right? To kind of let it hang. Do I really want to go like that? Probably not. I think you could. I mean, this would, look at that, you know, you would get a really nice sleeve, but making the distance between here and here, it's from here all the way to here. It's like a full 2 inches. That might be a little difficult to sew. You'd probably have to ease a lot to do that. You see it in suit jackets, right? You see that nice little bump, right? And that's the easing. We like that. But this would be a little extreme on just like a blouse or something. So now back to like Jan's issue, and she's saying, oh, I have a narrow shoulder. You know, what if when I bring in this shoulder line right here, you know, she wants to bring it up here, right? Because now, right now on her, it's sitting like this, right? She's got droopy shoulders. Sorry, Jan. All right, Jules. So, you know, here's the shoulder, and it's just kind of like, you know, kind of limp, and it doesn't look really nice, and you want to pull it up onto the body. So if the sleeve is looking pretty good at this line, then what needs to happen is both need to move, because you don't want to disrupt the sleeve. It would keep it static if we can just move this line in tandem with the armhole. But let's say this sleeve is looking kind of sloppy. It looks like it's kind of dragging on the back of the, like on the elbow area, like it's just looking a little bit, just not in the right place. When you pull this up, it would pull that sleeve up too. So just make sure your armhole is in the right place. You know, this is a very movable place, and it's very personal. People like their armholes in different places, and on different garments you like them in different places, and at different times in your life you're gonna want them in different places. So yeah, narrow shoulder, yeah, exactly. So, so yeah. All right, so let's talk about the forward cap adjustment here, and this is going to be my two-piece sleeve demo. So for the forward cap, I've already gone through my paper over here. Lovely, lovely. Is this big enough? We'll try. All right, so I'm going to slice this off, and I usually stick to this upper area here, right? Yeah, no problem, Anne. Hopefully that was a little, I think that I underestimated the dress form actually being helpful without an arm in it. At least some kind of visualization just helps no matter. I sometimes think I'm being super visual, and then I'll have to watch part of like an old stream, and I'm like, what were you talking about, Sarah? I have no clue what you were talking about. I don't know why you guys aren't like, I have no idea what you're talking about, lady. All right, so we're just gonna slice the cap off, all right? And this is the front, and this is the back, all right? I always work with the front on my right and the back on my left, just so you know. All right, so we're going to place the cap or the sleeve on a piece of paper, and we need to figure out how much we're going to rotate this forward. For me, it's quite a bit. Oh, that's funny, Julie. I wonder if there's a centimeter version for you then in Ireland or in the UK. I think most people are, and you know, it doesn't hurt, right? Okay, so when I'm trying to find like where the ball of my shoulder is, it's pretty obvious, right? On me, like my dress form's gonna look correct to you because it's a human being, right? It's like you would never say, that person's shoulder ball's in the wrong place, right? You might see a garment on them and go, that garment shoulder ball's in the wrong place. But even this sloper that she's wearing right now, it was drafted correctly. So, you know. So right here is usually where the ball of my shoulder is, or it always is. that thankfully hasn't changed much. And you may even be able to see like how long my back armhole needs to be. Right here, it needs to be kind of long, and the front is pretty short. So usually my front, I'm putting it like probably right about here, right there. So this kind of gets into shoulder adjustments too, like on the garment, right? If you need that shoulder seam to come forward so that it's in alignment with the top of your sleeve. This is gonna depend. This is, for me, probably one of the things that I do that's personal in pattern drafting. So I'll tell you a little story. Like when I learned to draft, I need a scrap piece of paper. My kingdom for more scrap paper. Is this enough right here? Well, I have my whiteboard. The whiteboards. We like the whiteboard, but I lost my eraser. Okay, so when I first learned to draft, you learn very properly, right? You figure out measurements, and for the first and only time in design school, I went to a very good design school too, you drape your muslin onto the dress form that you are assigned, and you have that same dress form for the whole term or whatever, and then you make your sloper and you learn how to do that, right? And that's how it is. You're mimicking the dress form, but the dress forms are all standardized. So then when I get out of design school and I'm drafting for a company, I'm using whatever they have already. I'm not starting from scratch. I don't get to design their sloper. And so sometimes what you'll see is here is the front, right? And then let's say we laid the back behind it. You will see the back, sorry, my drawing is terrible today, like this. So the back, you know, all of this is about the same, right? But the back neck is obviously higher up, right? And the shoulder is parallel. This is my point. Shoulder is parallel. When I worked in children's wear, I told you the other day, that's exactly what we would do. We would trace, I would draft the back or the front, and then I would just make the shoulder parallel, usually like a 1/2 inch parallel, maybe 3/4. Women's I always did 3/4 of an inch. Children's I always did a 1/2 inch. Quick and dirty. Are people like that? Very debatable. So then I worked somewhere else, and I got trained on their CAD program. I had, like, you know, every time you move somewhere, you have to learn a new CAD program. It's awful. And the guy who taught me, he had this really complicated way of doing the shoulder line. And it looked more like, if you were to nest the front on top of the back, I think it looked like this. It was not a parallel angle, right? So these are both correct. It doesn't really matter when you're doing mass production because it'll fit somebody. Like, you can't fit every single person with one pattern piece, right? I know this really makes everybody so mad that their clothes don't fit them when they buy them, but they fit somebody. You know, that's just how we have to operate. If you fit in the size chart, that size should fit you, but it may not be distributed the same way as it is on your best friend who measures the exact same thing, right? So this shoulder line, this may be true for you and this may be true for you. Who knows, you know, until you start really getting into drafting your sloper. And so sometimes now that you don't, like, say you don't have your sloper, right? You're buying patterns from whoever, right? They may draft their shoulder like this. They may draft their shoulder like this. Who knows, right? The owner of the company may have super sloped shoulders, so all of the patterns come out the gate with sloped shoulders, or narrow shoulders, or broad shoulders, or square shoulders. Usually you can kind of look at the owner of the company and go, I'm kind of similar to them. This probably will fit me really well. And that's a really good, like, gauge, because I promise you it fits the owner really, really well. Okay, so this little shoulder thing here, when you get into it, like on, you know, say you're trying to fit something, right? Sometimes you'll see that the shoulder fits like too well right now. Sometimes you'll see, like, oh, maybe you'll see like some drag lines, you know, like that, right? And you know, oh shoot, this is too tight. I need to raise the, I need to, like, split this apart and let it relax and let it open up, right? But maybe the back shoulder doesn't really need that. Just the front shoulder needs it. And maybe that's because they draft one way, but you're the other way, right? So all of this is, there's so many variables, right? Because we're trying to fit somebody. It's hard, right? So this shoulder and where the ball of your shoulder is going to vary Now, where the shoulder seam is, it could line up with the ball of your shoulder. It could be way back here. I hate that. I personally cannot stand this. If your garment's always going to the back and it's not a cut-on sleeve, it's probably because the shoulder seam is too far back. It doesn't help it seat on the shoulders and let the garment fall equally from this point, because your shoulders are like a clothes hanger, right? So all I'm doing, telling you all of this for, you may need to move this shoulder seam to match where the shoulder ball is. So my shoulder seam is right here, and I think it matches on this dress form. I think it matches the seam of the dress form, but my sloper comes forward a little bit. Yeah, I do too, Anne. I don't know why that is. I think that someone recently was telling me about a fit issue, and I think when I saw the back, where did Saramy's eraser go? It wasn't a fancy eraser, it was just a piece of batting. I lost it. I saw the back pattern piece, and it was, I kid you not, like this. Like, where's the slope? Where is the height? You know? It was like so shallow right here. So that meant that the front, you know, the front is going to have to be much taller. So if you were to nest the front on top of this, like that kind of shoulder angle like this, the front would have been, is this color different? I don't know. It would have been like this, like above the back. No, I'm sorry. I don't like that. Sometimes when you're dealing with a yoke seam, that is one case where the shoulder seam of the yoke can come really far forward, right? So it can come really far forward, and then you'll see, like if you were to put the yoke on the lower back, then lay the front on them, you might see a back that's really high, right? And then the yoke back there, right? And that's because this wraps to the front, and you see the seam kind of in the front. Like think about a cowboy shirt, right? And you have the decorative yoke seam there, right? It's coming really far forward. All right. Yeah, I think I totally agree, Terry. It's a fashion thing. It is not a functional thing. It's more of a preference. And that's why I started this whole thing by saying my shoulder thing is definitely preference based. I'm not going to say that drafting it is improper to do that, because I've run across pattern drafters who do this, and you know, he was a really interesting guy and kind of annoying. He couldn't listen at all. So it wasn't like I could have like a discussion with it, because I love talking about this stuff, and I wanted to say, so why do you do that? Like, is this where your school taught you? Is this a geometry thing? Is this what you found? Like, is this your experience? No, there was none of that. So I never really understood his impetus, but he wasn't the only person I ran across that did that. So I don't think it's wrong to have different shoulder angles from one another. That actually is very legit. Like I see that a lot when I'm like, oh, I have to drop the front shoulder but not the back shoulder. But putting the shoulder seam completely on the back, no, I'm not interested in that. All right, let's get back to this. Sorry, I'm totally off topic here. All right, so you're gonna find your cap. So if you're like, okay, my cap, this was my sleeve, and I really felt like my shoulder ball was like right over here, right? That means we need this right here, this little notch, that is the shoulder seam, right? We need to move that where your shoulder ball is, or at least close. Like you need to figure out, like, is the shoulder ball an inch in front of the seam? Then I need to move this probably an inch, something like that, right? So be really literal about it on the body, and figure out where you're talking about in relation to your body and your sleeve, right? And then you just slide it over just like that. Just as simple as that. You just slide the cap over. I'm telling you, my sleeve looks like a carnival ride. I'm not exaggerating. Let's put some paper here. So now, remember when I went on my little spiel about blending seams? This is a case where you do want to trim, because remember all that excess on the back of my arm? We do want to scoop that away, right? So we want to get rid of this excess here, and we need to fill it in over here because the ball of the shoulder, they need to get covered up too, right? And we want this seam to not go across the ball of the shoulder. We want it to be on the body, right? So there we go. So then this always reminds me of the cookie that doesn't rise evenly. You know what I mean? Like it's like, meow, like that. Or like a melting snowman. So when I first did this to my sleeve, long time ago, I was like, It was so hard to break away from standardized drafting to fit me. And now when I see this sleeve, I get so happy. I get so happy because I know how it feels. So that would be a forward shoulder. So now the person who had asked about doing this on a two-piece sleeve. So a two-piece sleeve, do you have any questions before I go off? Because I'm trying to keep this short and I just love to talk. A two-piece sleeve, you see this in suit making, right? So the sleeve has two seams down it. So this is the sleeve right here, and then these two are cut apart and joined. So just I'll give you a visual just in case you don't know what these look like. All right. I drafted this one more like visually accurate. I doubt it's very accurate, right? So then this is over here, okay? And there's a seam here, right? So this is a piece and this is a piece, and there's a little elbow dart that was here, and it gets eased in. So there a little bit of the dart, which actually comes more like right here to the end of it right here. So then this is a seam, right? There's a little dart right here, and you ease it in to this underarm seam. You don't actually sew the dart anymore. But when you draft one of these, it has a dart in it originally, like the original sleeve. And if you were to look at this sleeve on the body, right, you would see it naturally cants forward like that. See? Because when we're standing, you know, right, and we're just relaxed, see how our arm goes forward a little bit? That's what that does. That little elbow dart right here gives it that. So in suit jackets, they do this because it'll be more comfortable because of the bulk of the jacket. And there's also extra sleeve built into this sleeve, extra ease built into this sleeve. And it has this natural articulation to make it more comfortable. So when you draft it, you have this. I'll just cut it apart for you so you can kind of see what it looks like. These are kind of fun to draft. I think everything is fun. I know. All right. Get rid of all this static here. All right, so there's our two-piece sleeve. And remember, there's this little dart right here. I'll just cut it out so you can see it. They leave that in there, and then they ease it into the seam right here so that you get that little shape, right? So you get that little elbow shape, just like that. All right, so next time you see someone wearing a suit, you can kind of ask them to raise their arm and you'll see this little piece under there, right? Okay, so when you want to do a forward cap on here, if you've drafted the sleeve, you could always put it back, right? You could cut it down here, the middle, separate it out, tape it back together up here, at least temporarily, like this. Add your forward cap, slide it forward, blend it in, cut it apart, and put it back to where it was, right? So that's how I would do it if it's getting a little bit out of whack, because that forward cap, technically, it most likely isn't touching this seam right here, so I'm not sure what's happening, except that, you know, this extra right here would need to be built onto this part of the sleeve right here. So if we were to do this, my sleeve is kind of disintegrating under there. I would do the same thing, you know, I would draw a perpendicular line to the grain line across, and then I would be overlapping these pieces separately with their own paper on them, right? So I'm going to tape a piece of paper to this, and I'm going to tape a piece of paper to, yeah, maybe this, right? Right? Then I'm going to lay them together as if they're sewn. Like this, right? And then we slide our cap forward, right? And now we can tape the cap to the center, the main sleeve here. And now we still have this overlapped on the seam line, and we can blend it in. That was a huge difference there. It was, remember, this is a half sleeve, right? And then back here, we're gonna trim it away. Right? And then we're gonna add the roller coaster dip on this side. This is the climb, right? When you're on the roller coaster, the front of the sleeve is when you're going tick, 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 and then you go down the back sleeve, right? Okay, so now we have our, and we can trim this off there, right? We've trimmed that seam, and we have our forward cap, and now we can put these back together. I'm assuming the person who asked this is like knows how to do the two-piece sleeve. That's why I'm kind of going kind of fast, like not going over all the details. But look, there you can see your extra from the forward cap. We trimmed away on the back, and now it should all sew together. And there you have your forward cap built into this two-piece sleeve. So there you go. All right, well, that's all I have for you today. Do you guys have any questions? Someone asked to use their forward or round back issue in a stream. I've already done that stream. I'll reply to them. But, you know, if you're in the guild and you can come to workshop, I'm happy to help you there. Quick today, full hour. That's because I was like, I can do this really relaxed and take my time because I only have these two little things, and then I end up taking longer. So, yeah. Oh, let's see. You have read, like, you should not see the seam. Yeah, exactly. It does look strange. Yeah, shoulder seams back there. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It sometimes I see when I have to sew a home sewing pattern that I don't get to choose. I don't say this to you guys, but I see that and I'm like, you know, I just think, I did the lift yesterday, Tina. This was all about forward shoulder and cap adjustments, but the lift is in yesterday's. Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you, Jessica. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so tomorrow, let's hope I'm literally redrafting my pant block to match Jelly Bean, which is my quarter form. If you don't know, my jelly bean quarter form. You will tomorrow. Because I really hope I can convey these issues on Jelly Bean really well. Because Jelly Bean has quite a booty, you know, and her posture is kind of bad. So we'll see. All right, you guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming.